That's basically the gist of what we're going to be going through today. All right, but I would do want one thing from you guys before I start. Please, confirm whether you can hear me and see my screen without any issues. In the chat, give the confirmation in the chat. And while you guys are doing that, let me just show you something. All right. Okay. So while you guys tell me about, the confirmation, guys, so here at Great Learning, we started something called Great Learning Academy. Now, Great Learning Academy is something really cool, especially if you are looking to get a foundational course in, for strengthening your fundamentals in a certain area. Like, let's say you want to become a full stack developer, then you want a basics course for that because you don't know where to start. Then you should definitely go ahead and check out greatlearning.in, especially because there are all the courses that are there on Great Learning Academy are completely free. You don't have to pay anything, and you'll find courses from 1 hour to 6 hours, and depending on the course content there is. And this is especially for students and freshers who are just getting out of college or were still in college and looking to upskill or define a career definition for themselves, a career path for themselves. So definitely go ahead and check this out. It's at greatlearning.in/academy, or just type in Great Learning Academy in on Google. Or if you are the kind of person who's watching this live session through mobile, you can just download the Great Learning app from the App Store and enroll for the course from the app itself. And it's completely free. You don't have to pay anything for this. And since you don't have to pay anything for this, you still get a certificate. So that's there. And a reminder, guys, that this live session will not give you a certificate. The course that you enroll for, and once you complete that course, you will get a certificate for that course. All right, you have to complete a quiz for that, but this live session comes is separate. So coming back, we are going to be talking about Splunk today. So Splunk, right? What is it? How does it help us? And why do you even should be learning about Splunk? Okay, so before I do begin, I will check the chat to get a confirmation from you guys. Okay, so I see good response. Everyone is saying that, yes, they can hear me. Okay. Voice is echoing. Since I'm working from home too, this is the best setup I can do so far. But thanks for the input. I will let my team know, and we will try to do something about that. Uh, is it way too echoey? Okay, so let me just try to resolve that. Hello, testing. Is it better now? Okay, fine. So let's just continue. Again, guys, if I'm echoing a little bit too much, this is the limit of my setup for now. But I will try to improve this later in future. Okay, for today, let's just go ahead with this. Okay, so when we talk about Splunk, I need to ask you guys, questions like why monitor at all? Like, okay, it's a rhetorical question. I don't really want an answer because it's a very simple question to answer. Like, why monitor? You monitor things because you want to get insights into something. You monitor yourself for your behavior so you can improve upon yourself. Similarly, we monitor in software industry too. So, we monitor software, we monitor applications, we monitor systems and servers so that we can improve them, right? So that we get a feedback of how we're doing so far. Monitoring is important in every facet of any kind of development or any kind of work we are doing. We always want to improve, and that's why we always need to get a second, what do you say? We need a feedback, and we need to use that feedback to make changes whenever we do that thing again or while we're doing that thing. So that's what we monitor, right? And monitoring is a very important part of software development, but not just software development. A lot of different parts of software industry, like in the IT industry, you have a lot of different things that you do. Software development is not the only thing. You provide a lot of services and a lot of products. So even there you need to monitor. And companies like Spotify, Microsoft, Adobe, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Bose, Slack, IBM, and Adidas, all of these companies monitor extensively. And these are a few companies to list. There are a lot of companies out there, like almost every company monitors, from the biggest company Apple to any small company or any local businesses. They will also try to monitor in some way or the other so that they can improve upon their business model and their product. How do they do this? They basically take in the data from the different sources. They can take any kind of data. This data can be your logs from your applications or your servers, or this can be metric data that define how your system is doing, or this can be your transactional data, how your customers are interacting, or this can be your API data, how well your API is working. A lot of different types of data can be collected. Even business related data, like business processes and customer data, information like that. So there are a lot of different sources from which you can collect. And using this data, once you've taken this data, you collect it and you start analyzing this data. And once you've analyzed this data by training any models on it, and then trying to find patterns or trends in it, or just plain visualizations, so you just want to get an analysis out of it. A good way to do that is generally by creating visuals. So that's how it goes. And monitoring helps them increase the quality of the product they have, increase their revenues, and make their product or service very scalable. That means improve the number of servers you have, or improve the services that you can provide other people. So let's say you have 100 customers and you provide your services for those 100 customers. It's pretty accurate and pretty adequate. But what, let's say that 1,000 customers come next month, so you need to increase the scale of your operations, right? So that is scaling. So when you monitor your whole IT environment and you understand it, it becomes easier to know where the problems are and how you can resolve them and scale in future. So these are the benefits, and that's why we continuously monitor, to make a better product, to increase our revenues, and to make sure that we have enough scalability, right? And there are different types of monitoring, like system performance, process monitoring, integration monitoring, application performance, and business monitoring. So system performance is basically checking out how well your system server is doing, like how much CPU usage is happening, how much memory usage, and is it not exceeding any of those limits, those kind of things. And then you have process monitoring. So in process monitoring, basically what happens is you monitor your processes individually. Let's say you're running Nginx on your server. Nginx is a web server platform, right? And you want to make sure your Nginx is running awesome, like it's working fine. So you need to monitor your Nginx's logs to understand if it's working fine or not. You need to monitor the Nginx's metrics to understand if there's a problem there at all or not. So that kind of thing. And then comes integration. In integration monitoring, you basically measure how well each component of your software is interacting with each other, and how well are they integrated together. Like, are they able to talk to each other properly? Is there any, communication gap, or is there any, buffer, or is there any network traffic, like unnecessary one that you need to avoid? So you check that over there. And then you have application performance, where you measure your application itself. Like, you check out if the application itself is doing well or not. This can be your product or a service that you're providing. Let's say you have Google. Google has many different applications. The most popular one is your Google search engine. So they definitely monitor how well their Google search engine is doing. So they can reach out to their millions or even billions of uses they have. And then you have business monitoring. Now this goes into a little bit more aspect of business intelligence, but these different domains overlap a lot, especially in the IT industry or the software industry, where you're providing software as a product. So you will have business monitoring processes that will overlap with your application performance. All right, so with that out of the way, we understand that these are the different types of monitoring. Now let's talk about the different monitoring tools that are available to us. We have a lot of different tools available to us. So if you're talking in context with software development, we have tools like ELK Stack or Elastic Stack. We have Prometheus and Grafana. We have Nagios, and then we have cloud services like Amazon CloudWatch and really big tools like Splunk. Now, in today's lecture or today's session, we'll be learning mostly about Splunk. So what's so great about Splunk that we don't find in any of these other tools? Now, let me give you guys a preface for Splunk. Splunk is a monitoring tool. So by now you must have understood already that Splunk is a monitoring tool with all the introduction that I've given you. So Splunk is a monitoring tool that is used on a very large scale. Now you can use tools like Prometheus and Grafana on your own system and monitor a lot of different aspects of it. And you have your own internal build system. If you're using any of the operating systems, you can always measure how much memory you're using, how much CPU usage you have, and all of those things. Especially in Windows, like whenever something goes wrong, we bring up the task manager, right? And that task manager basically helps us to understand what's going on with our system. So similarly, Splunk also does that, but it does it on a very large scale. Like you have like big companies like TCS, Tata Consultancy Services. Then you have Wipro, you have Cognizant. All of these are big multinational corporations. And then you have companies like Amazon, Intel, IBM, all these big companies out there, right? They have a lot of different services. They don't have just one service to provide people. And the amount of customers they have ranges from, millions to even hundreds of millions. So that's a lot of customers we're talking about, and that's a lot of services we're talking about. So over there, you need to have a very reliable monitoring system. And Splunk is the one that fills that niche role. Like if we talked about any alternative to Splunk, the ELK stack or Elastic Stack is another alternative to it. But the thing with that is that it's not as good as Splunk. Now that's a personal bias of mine. If you have a different opinion, that's all right. But the Splunk tool is really well polished and it is really helpful in this kind of environment, in this corporate environment. And that's where the price tag for Splunk also comes in. Splunk is a paid tool. First and foremost, I have to tell you that it's not a free tool. You can learn Splunk, by using the free version of it, but you cannot make good use of it by using the free version, right? You can only use the paid version for it. And the paid version comes with a lot of different perks, and we will talk about it. And Splunk itself, inside of it, has many different products and domains that we will also talk about. Okay, so before I do begin with all that, I see that you guys have asked a few questions. I'll try to answer those questions that you guys have asked, then we can move on. So Tusif Rahman is asking about Splunk Enterprise Security. So yeah, so Splunk has a specific domain inside of it that is SEIM, that is Splunk Enterprise Security version that you can go ahead for that. So you're asking how can we go for that? So this is what I will suggest for you. There are a lot of videos, even Splunk that releases. You can go ahead and check them out, understand the domain, and then always check out the documentation. The documentation always helps out a lot. And once you understand the basics and fundamentals enough, you can apply for the certificate that Splunk itself provides. Now Splunk itself provides the certificate. Those are your official certificates. You can go ahead and apply for that. Okay, so let's see. So Abbas is asking, why do we need to learn Splunk? So here's the thing. Splunk is a very exclusive tool that some companies use a lot. Sometimes what will happen is that they will look for people who have Splunk certification itself. You might be really good at, specific tools, and you might be really good at development. But in the end, they will want a person who knows Splunk really well. because Splunk is a very big tool. Like I don't even want to call it a tool. I don't know what to call it. I will call it a product. So inside of it, you have a lot of different domains that you can choose, like administrator, like a power user, and a knowledge objects manager or a developer. There are a lot of different things. So sometimes companies will go specifically for Splunk, certified people. So there's if you want to get into your dream company, and if you have used Splunk in the past, or you are looking to add it to your skill set, then it's something you should definitely learn. Having 6 years of experience in a different field, can I move into Splunk? What is the prerequisite required to learn Splunk? So, Mohit, you have six experience in what field? Like, if you gave a little bit, more detail into it, it would be better. Because if you worked in a IT industry and you worked in a similar field, maybe let's say you worked with software development, and or let's say you worked as an infrastructure engineer, and you have experience like that of 6 years, then it would be very easy for you to move into Splunk domain, right? So there, the prerequisites that you would need are basically know the basics of monitoring. If you are already in that field, then how you can set up everything, or know the basics of coding, know the basics of computers, those kind of things. Now, coding again is not necessary. Just know the basics of computers. You don't need to know a lot to get into Splunk, but once you get into Splunk, there are a lot of things that you will get to learn over time. One thing that I would recommend, other than basic computer skills, is having knowledge about how data is stored and how to handle data. Because you will be learning how to handle data within Splunk once you get into Splunk. And if you have prior knowledge for that, then it would definitely help you out. So Rohan says he's new to Splunk and it's his first class. Well, that's really nice, Rohan, that learning new skills, huh? So keep watching the session. We will do a practical, so you guys will get to see how Splunk looks like also. So Rohit asks, so if we have Splunk certificate, how much package would we for freshers? Okay, Rohit, I would recommend not getting a certification out of college because they do want you to have other fields of knowledge as well, other than just Splunk. And you don't want to limit yourself to being just Splunk. I mean, yeah, a lot of companies do make use of this tool, but I would not recommend you learning only this tool. There are a lot of other domains that you should be, privy with. Like especially, uh, like let's say you're a software developer. It would be better if you know software development and then move on to being specialized in that software development. You are a software developer who knows how to make use of Splunk, so you can maybe shift into Splunk developer, right? So I would recommend doing that. I would not recommend starting off as a fresher and getting into Splunk, because that way it's very difficult to get a job. You can only get junior roles and very intern roles, and even those are hard to find. So Mohit says he's working as a data analyst. So yeah, you can move into Splunk because the fields are very similar. Mohit, you said data analyst. So yes, you can move as a data analyst onto Splunk. There are some business intelligence aspects of it, but it is mostly in the IT industry that it's used. But that's to my extent of knowledge. Maybe you can, go ahead and find out if it's more suitable for you to move, but I think it should be totally fine for you. You already have experience in this kind of field. Rohan is asking, are certificates provided for free sessions or live sessions? So let me tell you again, for live sessions, you will not receive any certificate. It's just something that you guys can watch on YouTube. But if you want a free certificate for a certain topic or anything, feel free to head on to Great Learning Academy. That's where you're going to be getting certificates. You have to enroll for these courses. They're like 2.5 or 1 hour or 4.5 hours of self-paced course. That means there are videos that you guys can watch, and once you complete those videos, you have to pass through testing, and once you've passed the quiz, you will get a certificate then. Okay. All right, so with all of those questions out of the way, let's start Splunk proper. So Splunk is a data collection, analysis, and visualization tool. Companies use this tool to collect, monitor various types of data such as application metrics, application logs, transactional data, customer data, network data, configuration settings, CSV, security data, and more. So you can collect all these different types of data. like application metrics. Metrics define how much usage of resources is happening on your system. You have CPU usage, you have memory usage. So the metrics will monitor how much of that is being used. So that's how you find out if there is any issue at all. Let's say if 100% of your memory is being used, then there is an issue that you find out. But it will not tell you what the issue is. To find out what the issue is, you need to check the application logs. Metrics define the usage of resources, whereas logs define the actual problem, right? Okay, so transactional data is basically data that happens when you're transacting information. Let's say you're on a bank website and you're transferring money from one place to another. So the act of you transferring money is transactional data you're transacting. Then you have customer data, that is the data on the customers itself, like customers personal information or customers extra information, as if like what they do, what are their habits and those kind of things. Network data is basically checking out different networks and how the network flows, making sure the network is fine, there are no breaches, no extra network data is being siphoned off. Then configuration settings, basically you make setting changes to a lot of different files. Sometimes you just make that in config files, and you can have a lot of different config files, so you can even upload that data. And CSV data is your basically Excel data. So today we'll be learning how we can upload an Excel sheet onto Splunk and how you can go through that, and security data and even more. So basically what Splunk does is it takes logs and other types of data and converts it into visualizations. In basic, if you wanted to know, this is what it does, but it does way more than that. Okay. So it can collect all the above mentioned types of data and even more, and then process all of that data based on conditions set by the user. So if you want to pre-process that data, or if you want to clean that data, you can clean that data, you can pre-process that data, and then you can finally visualize that data for further presentation and a better understanding of whatever data you have collected. Okay, so let's see the benefits to Splunk. Like, why do you need to check out Splunk, right? So I've given you a lot of reasons, but let's see these benefits properly. So first, real-time performance monitoring. So this is more of a sell to a company if they want, why they need to use Splunk, not to a person whether they should learn Splunk or not. So Splunk has real-time performance monitoring. That means that you can monitor your Splunk Enterprise or whatever tool you're using within Splunk in real time. That means you are checking it out as it is happening. If a server goes bust, you get to know about it as it happens. That's real-time monitoring with very like microseconds of lag. Then logging tool, you can use it as a tool that helps you to store logs for different applications, different servers, and different tools. Now logging is important because you will have to store a lot of different logs for debugging purposes. So let me reiterate what I had told you guys earlier. Metrics defines if there is a problem at all or not. But for the problem itself, you need to check out the logs. Now, what are logs? Logs are basically information that is produced every time something happens. Like if you take the normal definition of log, that is like when you are, let's say in a class and your teacher takes down, notes of what happened in the class. Like she taught at 1 o'clock. And then at 2 o'clock, all the students left. She's making a note of things that are happening. So that is her taking logs. Similarly, any tool, oh, one second guys. So any tool that is being used or that is working produces logs. These logs define the things that are happening within the tool. So these logs tell you what has happened with this tool or with this software. Everything produces logs. Your system produces logs, your server produces logs, your applications produce logs, your processes produce logs, everything produces logs. Stack security and alerting. So basically you form a layer of security by introducing all of these monitoring methods, and it gives you the option of creating alerts. You can schedule alerts, not schedule alerts. You can create alerts that get triggered whenever something goes wrong. If you set your alert to happen when there are excess amount of certain logs coming in, then you will get alerted about the same. So that's how you set it. You can do that with Splunk. And then you can create amazing dashboards and visualizations. So that is true of any visualization tool or any monitoring tool. So Splunk also does it. And you can make these real-time dashboards, and you can do a lot of edits within them. And you can do data analysis. So Mohit asked me, right, since I'm from data analytics, can I shift into this? Yes, you can shift into this. You can perform data analytics in this by making use of various tools. So I have a few questions over here. Let me answer them. So yes, you can use. So Rahul is asking, can I use Splunk in business aspects? As I'm working as a business operations analyst, you can use it, but you have better tools for that. Like I don't want to put Splunk down. You can use Splunk, but the thing is, learning how to set it up and manage it is a whole thing. Like you have special people who do just that. You have Splunk administrators who know how to lay out Splunk and make sure that it's running fine. But for smaller things where you need to use business intelligence, you have specific tools for that where you don't need such extensive knowledge on them to use them. You can use Splunk for that. But for singular purposes, I would not recommend it. But you know what? You can definitely go ahead and test it out. There are two types of Splunk. Okay, I'll talk about that in a few moments. I don't want to tell it right now, otherwise, you guys will get confused. Like you can make use of it as a data analyst tool also. Like maybe this is what you can do. Maybe you can learn Splunk, and if you guys don't use it in your company, maybe you can recommend to any of your seniors that this is an amazing tool I found, and I feel like this might really help us, do something that we were not able to do previously. If there is a tool that does not require you to learn a lot and still do the same thing, then I would recommend using that tool instead of Splunk. But you can definitely use it for business analytics also. Okay, and it's very easy to use. That means that if you're a person who's not technical, does not have any technical savvy, you can use it. But uh, it's only in those scenarios. Don't think of this as, if you don't have any coding skills or if you don't know how to use computers, then you should, take a Splunk certification. No, when I say it's very easy to use, that means if a company is already making use of Splunk, and if there are managers who manage specific teams and they need to use Splunk on the side, then it will not be a problem for them to use it on this side because they have the role of being the business process manager or something. All they want to do is collect some kind of data from Splunk and view that data. So they can do it without any hassles. They don't have to learn it from the start. So that's what I'm trying to say when I say it's very easy to use. And good customer support. So that's true with any paid software. Since this is a very expensive software, you can definitely expect good customer support from it. And ML abilities. So you can apply machine learning abilities to see any future trends and patterns and predict any anomalous behavior that may occur. So that gives you security protection. Okay, so let's look at the Splunk products. Now, Splunk is a company that produces all the different products. So their major thing is monitoring, but they do have other products. So let me just list them down for you. You have the Splunk Core, that is the Splunk Enterprise. So Splunk Enterprise is basically used for the monitoring aspects of everything, where you can monitor software and systems. Then you have Splunk IT Operations. Now, Splunk IT Operations is more related to the Splunk IT domain, where if you want to manage your IT operations itself, then you go ahead and make use of Splunk IT operations. Then you have Splunk security, which is basically used to manage your, manage and secure your systems. So that is a separate product itself. And then you have Splunk DevOps that helps you to implement DevOps and help you to manage the different aspects of DevOps. So if you're a DevOps engineer, then you can shift into a Splunk DevOps person who knows how to make use of Splunk and DevOps. But you can also do it like this, like you're a person who knows DevOps as well as Splunk. So that's a big plus for any company that needs a person who knows both Splunk and DevOps. All right. So we'll basically be talking about Splunk Enterprise itself. That's the first thing that is used for monitoring purposes. So within Splunk Enterprise, you have a lot of different tools that are being used. So this is going to be a bit complicated. So listen properly. So in Splunk Enterprise, so Splunk Enterprise is our monitoring tool, and within the monitoring tool, we have a lot of different tools within it. So actually, let me not say Splunk Enterprise is a tool. Let me say Splunk Enterprise is the product, and that product has a lot of different suite of tools within it. Okay, so let me ask you this again. What is our purpose of monitoring? Our purpose of monitoring is to get an insight from our data. So what will we do? So we will collect data, we will store data, and we will analyze that data, and we will create visualizations out of it. So that basic premise is followed within Splunk also, but different tools handle it. So you have forwarders. Forwarders are the ones that are responsible for collecting all the data from the scrape targets. That means that if you have a server and you want to collect all the data on that server, you will install the forwarder on that server. And once you install the forwarder, once you enable the forwarder will start collecting the data and will start sending it. Now, where will it send all of that data? It will send all of that data to the indexer. Now, the indexer is the one that's responsible for storing all the data. If you know about databases, you will know about indexes also. Indexes basically allow you to search data or make data very easily retrievable and very easy to retrieve them at a faster pace also. So indexers are basically what's going to be indexing and storing the data. So once the data has been stored, you need to look at this data, right? And once you have the need to look at the data, you will make use of something called a search head. Now, search heads, as the name suggests, are basically they basically used to search the data. Once you store the data, you want to discover this data. You want to look at the data. You want to find out specific knowledge about it. So, or you want to create visualizations out of it, or you want to analyze this data. So that's when you will go ahead and make use of search heads. And you will have multiple forwarders, you will have multiple indexes, and you will have multiple search hits. Now, why do we have multiple of these things? Because we are doing this monitoring on a very large scale. So you are basically monitoring, you can be monitoring hundreds of servers. So you need hundreds of forwarders to be installed on those hundreds of servers. So to manage all these forwarders, because why do we need to manage these forwarders? Because we may need to remove these forwarders remotely, or we may need to update them remotely, or we may need to modify them remotely. So for that we need to manage it. To manage it itself, we use something called a deployment server. A deployment server is used to manage a forwarder. If you have hundreds of forwarders, they will be in clusters, and to manage them, you will use deployment server. Similarly, you may have multiple indexes to store different types of data or data with different retention policies. When I say retention policies, I mean how long that data will be stored, because you don't always store the data for long time. Like, let's say you're getting logs for your software. You will not store it for more than maybe a week or month at most. After that, it will be useless to you, because it's there's no point in going back and looking at such old logs. So it's just data hoarding then, and you don't want to hoard data without any use to it. It's a waste of money. So you set a retention policy that will state how long the data needs to be retained. If it only needs to be retained for a week, so you'll only retain the data for a week. So you will have different indexes for storing data for different types of data, and you will need to store it for different retention times also. That's why you will have so many indexes, and to manage all of these indexes, you will use something called the index cluster master. And similarly, you'll have search heads. You'll have multiple search heads. Now, why do you need multiple search heads? Maybe you get it for forwarders, that you have hundreds of servers and you need hundreds of forwarders. And even for indexes, you get it. But why search heads? Search heads is basically used to analyze and visualize and look for data. Well, in a very large company, especially multinational corporations, you have so many teams. You might even have like 10 to hundreds of teams, and all of them might need to look at data, might need to search data at the same time. So will they all use the same server for that purpose? Will they all use the same search engine? No, they won't, because then you can't have you can't have thousands of concurrent searches at the same time without expending that many resources, and a server may not be capable of that. So you'll have multiple search heads so that multiple people can look at the same data at the same time. And to manage all of those search heads, to delete them or to modify them or to update them, you need to make use of a search head cluster. Okay, so the names of the management tools are a little, difficult to remember. So just remember the color like I've given them. These aren't the official colors or anything. I've just given these colors so that you guys can remember. Forwarder, deployment server, indexer, index cluster master, search head cluster. And all of these will have their own separate servers except the forwarders. Now, forwarders will be installed on the end production server where the software that you want to monitor or the server you want to monitor is, and the indexer will basically be have its own servers. Like you might have one server for a specific indexer, you might have another server for a specific indexer, and search heads will have their own servers also, and these management tools will also have their own servers. So if we said that there was one forwarder, one indexer, one search head, and one of these each management tools, then itself you'll have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You'll have 6 servers for that purpose, right? So that's a lot of setup time and that's a lot of effort also put in. And these are not the only management tools. I did not talk about license master. And you have a monitoring console that I did not mention over here. So license master is the one that is used for managing all the licenses. Now, when I said that Splunk is a paid tool, Splunk Enterprise, right? There you have to buy different kinds of licenses. So you don't directly pay for a tool or you don't have any subscription. Basically, you pay for the amount of data you index. So if you're indexing 10 GB per day from the forwarder into an indexer, you pay for those 10 GBs per day. That's how your licensing works with Splunk, right? So they have pricing for that. I've not discussed the pricing, which is not really important for beginners such as you guys. Okay, and all of this is situated either on the infrastructure or on the cloud. Now, Splunk has its own cloud service. So if you are not looking to, set up all of these different servers and manage all of these different servers, what you need to do is you just need to use a cloud service for that, right? You can just use Splunk's own cloud service. So what they will do is they will set up everything for you according to your requirements, and you can just use the cloud to manage all of these things instead of having all of it on premise or on hardware. Or if you want, you can always set it up on your infrastructure also. Okay, and to monitor all of these things, you have something called a monitoring console. Now you may want to have the monitoring console on one of these management servers. If you want, you can have it separately also. So you'll have a monitoring console that monitors every aspect of your Splunk. Okay, now let's move on. Let's talk about the layout. That means basically how the data is transferred. So from the server, let's say you want to collect data. So the data will be collected with the forwarder. Once the forwarder collects the data, it will send it to an indexer. Here the data will be indexed and stored. And once the data has been indexed and stored, a user will use a search head to search for that data, right? And all of it will be managed by management tools. And there will be a layer of security and alerts configured for this. Okay, so hope that's clear for you guys. Okay, so before I start the enterprise licensing, I'll check out any questions you guys might have. Okay, Rohan asked about certificates. So I hope the moderator answered that, Rohan. Okay, so I don't have any new questions on this. All right. So if you guys want, you can always ask me questions in the end 5 minutes. So I've keep the last 5 minutes for only for Q&A. So you guys can ask any questions you want over there also. I mean, you can ask right now itself, but if you feel like you want to watch the whole thing without disturbing me, then you can ask then. Okay, so let's go with Splunk Enterprise licensing. So we have different kinds of licensing. There are multiple types of licensing, like your Splunk platform licensing, which is just your Splunk enterprise licensing. This is basically for what I talked about, like the 10 GB per day. If you're using 100 GBs per day, then you will need to, pay that amount per day. Or maybe this is what you're going to do. You're going to buy a package for a year. That means that for 1 year, you pay, let's say, $1 million. And in that $1 million, what you can do is you can basically index 100 GB per day. So that's what you're doing. Now these pricings aren't exactly correct. I'm just telling you it out of my head. Okay. Then you have Splunk Enterprise Infrastructure License, which is has a specific like there's a small difference between the enterprise license and the infrastructure license. Then you have the trial license. Now the trial license is basically for you to create proofs or concepts. Like sometimes you don't want to use the Splunk entirely itself, set it up, and if you don't like it, then you'll have to take everything down, and you've already paid so much money, right? So what you do is you use a trial license, you create a proof of concept, and you try it out. If you like it, then you can go for the proper licensing. Then you have dev and test licenses. These are for your special development and testing licenses. Then you have the free license. Now the free license is what we will be using, because free license is completely free. It only allows us to like index 500 MB per day, but that's like to the most of our need. It's generally used for learning purposes, or again proof of concept purposes, or if you just want to experiment with something, then you use a free license, right? Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about, then you have forwarder license. Okay, so when you're using forwarders, you have a specific license for them also. Then you have beta license. If you want to use any experimental version of Splunk Enterprise, you can go ahead and use that in beta license. Then you have premium app licenses. So within Splunk, there are specific apps that you can download and use that allow you to do your job better. So let's say you want to collect data from Cisco's, Cisco proprietary software. Then there are apps that are just for your Cisco apps, like Cisco monitoring. So you don't need to do anything from scratch. You already have apps for that purpose. Or if you have any special visualization app, if you want to make, you can do that also. So even there you have premium apps for which you need to license them. So you pay for the licensing fee. And then you have the industrial IoT license for any of those IoT devices. Okay. So these are the different licensing that you can take in Splunk. We'll be using the free licensing. Okay. So let me talk about a case study quickly. So the case study over here that we are going through is basically Intel. Now, Intel is a very big company. I'm pretty sure all of you know about it. If you're watching this on your laptop, then you're probably using an Intel, Intel processor. Like it can be i3, i5, or i7. Okay, they'll have various generations. So they basically, they make a lot of different products, not just the processors. So they're a big company. They're a pretty old company also. And today's market is generally data-driven market. That's why we're talking about Splunk, where you want to collect data and monitor data. So what Intel wanted to do was they wanted to shift away from their old business model to a very data-driven model, where they collect data, where they understand the data, and they use that data to make better decisions, right? So they wanted to shift to that model, but they were finding it a little difficult. So when they started to implement Splunk, they were able to solve these problems of theirs. They were able to shift to a data-driven model very easily, and they were able to centralize the monitoring aspects of all their services and products through the help of Splunk, right? Since they were able to centralize all of these aspects, they were basically unifying all of their products together. Not in the general sense, in the sense that you can, view them from one place. You can manage them from one place, right? So they were able to do that, and because of that, they were able to solve a lot of their problems. Like they were able to detect threats or risks in early stages and resolve those risks and threats. And because of that, they were able to save a lot of money and time. So it generally, in basic sense, it helped them out a lot, because Splunk, is a really reliable tool. It's an expensive tool, but it is reliable. All right. So in the end, Intel basically improved as a company by making a better business model and improving the quality of the products that they were producing also. Okay, now let's move on to installation and setup. So we'll now be talking about how to install Splunk and how to set it up. So let me just open my browser again. Again, Great Learning Academy. Okay, just go to your browser and type in Splunk for Windows. Now, the thing is, you can install Splunk for a lot of different operating systems, for Linux, for Windows, and Mac. The thing is, you can use it for Linux also if you want. The process of installing it on Linux is not that difficult, but even you can do it on Windows also. Okay. Okay, so we have two links over here. I'll just click on download Splunk Enterprise for free. There's a second link. All right, so generally it will take you to this page where it is version 8.0.6. So to download it, you click on free Splunk, and you either log in or you give your name details. You give your first name, last name, job title, email address, phone number, company, country you're in, zip, postal code, username and password, and you select software download. not cloud trial. We'll be downloading the software and running it on our system. You can check out the cloud trial if you want also in your own free time. Uh, Even software alone in your own free time. Just click on I agree and click on create your account. Once you do that, you'll get an account, and what it will do is it will take you to the page. You will see three tabs over here: Windows, Linux, and Mac, right? So just click on Windows version and get the 64-bit version. Okay. Once you get the 64-bit version, once you download it, you can start running it. So let me just open up my downloads folder. I think I should have it. All right. So yeah, so this is our tool. So this is what you should be seeing. You should be seeing Splunk 8.0.6. This is the release version that you should be downloading. Once you download it, just double click on it and it will start the installation process. Now, for me, it's already installed, and I'm not going to do this online because it's a little longer process. I hoped I could have showed you, but it takes a long time to install. So I'd rather do the practical than do the installation process and sit for the loading bar to fill up. Now, in that thing, that all you have to do is just check mark. Don't do the custom installation. Do the normal installation itself, and check the agreement, license agreement. If you want to read it, read through it, and give your admin name and password. Once you give your admin name and password, it will just start installing. There's nothing else that you need to do. And once the installation process is completed, right, it's not going to be some other app where you open the Windows, start bar and look for the app. It's basically a web app, so you need to access it through your browser. So what we will do is we will head to local host at the port 9000, not 9000, 8000. So what this tells us is that the Splunk is installed on our local host. So we're accessing our local host, but at the port 8000. So Splunk is available at this port on our local host. So if I press enter, you guys will see that it will start taking me to Splunk Enterprise. So this is what you should see in the start itself. Okay, so given your username, the name that you had to give during the installation process, that is going to be admin for me, and my password. Okay, so this is the starting greeting thing you should get, helping you get more value from Splunk software. Okay, got it. Important changes coming. You guys don't need to look at that right now. Don't show me again. So this is the dashboard. This is what the dashboard looks like. Okay, I hope you guys are seeing this. And let me check for any questions there might be. Rohan, thank you for the praise. I appreciate it. Okay, so yeah, I have some questions coming in. So e-learning lab is asking, so it's not agentless. So I don't exactly understand what you're saying there. It's not agentless. So you're trying to say it's agent. Yeah, I mean you can. Yeah. So I think I understand what you're saying now. So you can have different servers handling different processes. So you will have different agents technically, if you want to use that language. You will have different forwarders handling different, taking in data. You'll have different indexes storing different data, and you have different search heads searching for that different data. Okay. So Rohan asked a question. Rohan, you did not ask that question. Yeah, so e-learning is like forwarder is an end agent. Well, end agent, I mean, I don't know the specific technical term over here for that, but it is the one that is taking in the data, and you can have multiple of those. Mohit, can you please not spam the chat? You can reserve that for another type of session. We want to just talk about relevant stuff. If you have any relevant doubts, please ask those and don't spam the chat. All right. Okay, so let's move on. Let me just start, exploring Splunk for you guys. So over here, there's something called Explore Splunk Enterprise. This isn't really necessary. You won't be using it after the first time. You will, however, choose a home dashboard. You can just click on this and choose whatever dashboard you want. Like there are a lot of different types of dashboards over here, but these are not the dashboards that you have created. Those are default ones. I'll cancel it. We don't need it right now. And in Explore, you have product tools. You can check out the products there are for your Splunk. Add the data. So you can add data from here by clicking over here, but I'll show you somewhere else also from where you can add data. You can check out the Splunk apps. You can check out the Splunk documentation also. So the documentation is pretty helpful. You can learn a lot of basic stuff from there also. Okay, so you guys can see browse more apps. You can check out any app you want. Like let's say if you want to store some of the data in Git, so you can, have a Git app for that, where basically it allows you to track file changes on schedule and store dashboards and .conf changes to specific files. So in Splunk, you will be working with .conf files a lot. Like for everything, there's a .conf file. So if you want to establish a forwarder, you have a .conf file for that. If you want to make any changes to your monitoring tool, .conf file for that. There's a .conf file for almost everything. So you can store that in Git over here. Okay, so over here, this is the main dashboard. Over here, if you come to the left-hand side, you guys can see apps. So this is where all your apps are going to be. This is your default app, that is search and reporting app. All the searching, all the analysis you'll be doing is from the search and reporting app. So if I open it up, you will see a search bar over here. This is where you put in your queries. So if you want to look a specific index up, specify the timeline and you search it, you will find your data. Okay. And there is a steps. There's steps for you to learn how to search data also. Okay, let's come back. Let me show you guys over here. So this is the green thing that tells you the status of your Splunk itself. So Splunk's own health. Now Splunk D's health. So Splunk D is basically what makes runs the Splunk. It's basically the engine or the Splunk daemon, right? It basically makes your Splunk run. So everything is green over here. This is the legend. Green means the feature is functioning properly. Yellow means feature is experiencing a problem. Red means there are severe issues. Okay, and green means gray means health report is disabled. Okay, so everything is green, so that's fine. Then the administrator, you can change the administrator settings like passwords and time zone and everything. Messages, basically you get your notifications over here. And in settings, this is the major core part of it. We can just avoid the rest of it. If you want to find something, you just type, whatever you want to find over here. So settings is where you will find all the major stuff. Add data again over here. So you can add data from here also if you lose it over here. Monitoring console, let me open it up in a new tab, so I'll show it to you. Then over here, you have a lot of different aspects you can look up. So like I said, in data, you have different options like data inputs. You can check out the different types of data inputs there are. And forwarding and receiving, so you can configure, if you want to configure this single standalone environment for receiving and forwarding data, you have an option to configure that over here. And indexes, if you want to check out all the indexes on the local Splunk system, then you can check that out also. Okay, so guys, let me just preface something for you guys. Like I showed you all the layout, right? But in the practical part, we are not going to be checking out the whole layout and everything. Like, let me just show you. Yeah, I mean, this was our layout, but we'll be doing most of it in like one instance. Generally, when you want to set it up, you'll have it in different servers, but for our purposes of learning, we don't need to do that. Okay. Distributed environment. So this is how you manage all of them. So if you can set up your Splunk Enterprise to become an index clustering manager for forwarder management, or you can make it for distributed search also. And you have user roles and users authentication and everything. System settings, if you want to change it from port 8000 to some other port, you can do that over here. Licensing is over here. And in knowledge objects, you'll basically find all the objects that you'll be handling and working with, like search, reports, alerts, dashboards, tags, event types, data models, fields, lookups, user interface, and etc. Okay, so let me just show you the monitoring console. You guys can see monitoring console itself has a lot of different things that you can look up, right? We have way too many things to even go through over here. It's a very big tool. Splunk Enterprise itself. You can see in overview all the basic stuff, how much you're indexing, your license usage. If you cross your license usage for the day, you will get a violation warning. And you'll either have to increase the amount of indexing for that day or reduce it. Okay, so we have other things like concurrent searches, the CPU usage, the memory usage, the KV store, collections, and the alerts if there are any. Okay, and there are more specified, monitorings like summary, health check, indexing. Within indexing, you have a lot of different things itself. Searching, a lot of different things, resource usage, a lot of different things, forwarding, and etc. Okay, so let me just close this, and here are the data inputs. You can collect a lot of different types of local inputs like local event log collection, remote event log collection, files and directories, local performance monitoring, remote performance monitoring, TCP, UDP, registry monitoring, a lot of different things. Okay, all right, so let's move on. Let's actually try something out. I want to show you guys how to search data. So for that, what we will do is we'll go to settings and click on add data. So there are going to be three ways in which we can add data. One is uploading a file to our system. The other two are basically, monitoring. That is basically checking files over HTTP or anything. And the third is forwarder. So this is from local itself, and this is from a forwarder. So if you have a forwarder setup, you can collect data from here. But right now, we just want to upload data instead of monitor local source. So I'm going to click on upload over here, and it's going to give me an option to upload a source file. So let me do that. So I'll select a file over here, go to desktop. So this is an insurance sample file that I found online, first Google search with the sample CSV file. You guys can look it up too. So I've uploaded it. So once I upload it, you can see this is the process of adding your data. First, you add the source, select the source, then you select the source type, then you select the input settings, then you review all the settings you made, and then you submit it. So I'm going to click next, and it's going to ask me to set the source type. For me, I can preview all the data over here so you guys can see all the data. And if you want a confirmation, just go to open it up in the Excel sheet. And once I open it, this is the data. You guys can see this is my Excel sheet. And you can preview the data over here also. So there are no issues for our Splunk to detect this data. And it's already divided all of them as rows. So there is no need for us to use any advanced settings to divide them up, set them as event types and everything. All of it's already set. Okay, so no need to concentrate on this. Just click on next now, and we'll set the input settings. Over here, the host, you need to leave default. We'll leave these default. Index you can change. So index is where you store the data, right? As I've told you guys. Now, over here, I'm going to define an index. So this will be a local index. We are not going to have a separate server for this. We can either create our own new index, or we can choose one of the already existing ones. So if you leave it default, it will store all the data in main index. Like whenever you don't mention index in any location, it always stores data in main. Okay, so if you don't see any data in your created index, check the main index. It's probably there. I'm going to select main over here, and you guys can check out the FAQs over here, how indexes work and everything. And I will click on review. So my uploaded file is this file. It is the source type is CSV. Okay, if I wanted to change it, I could have. My host is this, right? Correct. And this is my index in which I'm going to store. So I'm going to submit it now. And now it's uploaded the data. Now I can click on start searching over here directly. It will just take me to this page itself with the thing, yeah, with the index mentioned. Okay, but I want to do it by myself. So let me just show you again. If you are at home page, all you need to do is just go to the search and reporting app, and this is where it's going to take you, right? And if you go to settings and indexes, you can find the different types of indexes. You have a lot of internal indexes. Like these are the default indexes that are already there. So this internal index basically stores all Splunk's internal data. That's why you can see that it's indexed data right now, right? So Splunk also, stores its own data. If you want to search that own data, you can search that own data also. And over here in main, you guys can see the last activity was a few seconds ago because we uploaded a data file. Let's come back, and in the search bar, mention the index that you want to search. I will mention main, and you can see it's loaded up all my different records, right? So let me show you what's happening here. This is the timeline. It will show you when the data was uploaded or when the data was indexed. And this will show you how many events you have in your index. Right now we have 14,000 events without any filters. That means that's the total number of events we have. And it tells you the time at which you can find the events. You can change your time period. You can change it to all time. It may have more events, but if you haven't uploaded anything, it will not have more events. But we have more events over here. And if you do last 24 hours, only data within last 24 hours will appear. Okay. So these are the records. You can drop them down, check out all the different fields they have. Like this is insurance data. So there is insurance policy ID. So this is the policy ID of that insurance data. This is the state code. So this is American insurance. This is for Florida state code, and host, source, all those different types of things. So as of now, it's only showing the data based on these three fields because these are the selected fields. If I want to choose more fields, I can just select over here any of these interesting fields and I can make them from interested to selected over here and it will become a selected field. So I have construction equal to steel frame. So let's go ahead and search this. Now, if I want to query data where I want only those records that have construction field set as steel frame. So I will take this steel frame and put it in double quotes and I'll mention it after the index. So what this will do is this will find all the records within main that have the field construction set as steel frame. So if I look it up, the number of events is going to reduce. It's 72 events now because these are the only events that have construction set as steel frame. Okay. So once you find whatever query you want, you can go ahead and save it. If I want, I can save it as a report. I'll mention this construction and I will click on save. Okay, then I can view my report and it will show us the report. Okay, I can even save this as a dashboard panel if I wanted to. But that's I can add this to dashboard, this report, but I have to create a dashboard for that. All right, so that's it for today, guys, because we already crossed our time. I wanted to give you a brief idea of what Splunk can do. Okay, if you guys like the session and if you want more on Splunk, feel free to add it in the comments after this session has been added as a video. Now I'll just tell you guys about the different roles we have. Yeah, so Splunk Enterprise has a lot of roles within them. I told you guys already about the administrator. He's responsible for setting up the Splunk architecture and managing it and maintaining it. Then you have knowledge manager that is responsible for managing all the knowledge objects that we just looked at over your settings. These are the knowledge objects. He's supposed to be creating them also. And then you have search user or a power user. He has basic knowledge of Splunk and he basically knows how to make powerful queries and search the data. Okay. And then we have pivot users. These are the users that make use of pivots. Pivots are basically something that allow you to create visualizations without having to query the data. Like we query the data over here, right? Sometimes they can be very complex queries that we want. So that will not sit well with a lot of managers who don't know how to, use these queries. So what they can do is instead of, learning it from scratch, they can just use pivots that allows them to create diagrams and visualizations. Then we have developers who develop all the apps for Splunk and develop any certain data model or something. Okay, so these are the different Splunk enterprise roles. All right, so that's it for this session. But now I will be taking questions for like 2 minutes. So guys, go ahead and ask questions. So e-learning lab is asking, can I monitor a server without a forwarder? Well, no, you cannot monitor a server without a forwarder. You need a forwarder. There are two types of forwarders that are generally used. There's the universal forwarder, that is the very extremely lightweight forwarder, and there's a heavy forwarder. The difference is heavy forwarder does some pre-processing. Pre-processing as in it filters the data and it does a few extra things, but that will restrict the amount of resources you can use. Whereas with universal forwarder, you don't need to use any extra resources. It's a very lightweight forwarder. So Rohan has been asking, you have a question. Rohan, please go ahead and ask that question. I'll try to answer that. All right, I don't see any more questions coming in, so I expect you guys are satisfied. Anyways, this was the session. I hope you guys really enjoyed. Again, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell icon to watch any of my coming sessions. My name is Ram. And if you guys want, check out our other content also. There's really awesome content we make. We are really good at data learning, data science and machine learning, all that. But we are coming up in other fields also like software development and all the other aspects of that. Okay. So again, I hope you guys really enjoyed this session. and I'll see you guys next time.